Welcome to the Boone Podcast. I'm Bret Boone, and today on the program, I sit down with an all-star and a World Series champion.
I sacrificed a lot to come to New York. I wanted to be a part of something special.
He made me a better player, a better person.
Roy Halladay is my guy, man. He was tough.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Bret Boone Podcast. I'm Rich Herrera as we get ready for the opening day of the 2025 baseball season, joined by Tyler Kepner of the Athletic and, of course, Bret Boone. First of all, most important thing of the day, Tyler Kepner, happy birthday.
Thank you. 50 years old. How about that?
50 years. Wow.
Yeah. 5-0, baby. I got my AARP card literally like in the mail today. So they don't miss, man. They don't miss.
I hate those bastards. When they start sending it, it's just crap.
How do they know? It's like today is the day. Here you are. You're old. Right.
No good for nothing. I hate them. So what would little Tyler Kepner, 12-year-old Tyler Kepner, say if he looked at Tyler Kepner at the age of 50? What would he tell him?
I'd probably say he was doing just about what he thought he'd be doing. At least 14-year-old Tyler Kepner anyway, because kind of by 13 or 14, I kind of decided this is what I wanted to do. So, I think he'd be really happy with it. Because all I ever really wanted to do is be around baseball all the time and to work in it and have a reason for all this like baseball knowledge and interest to, to exist beyond just, my own hobby. So it's, it'd be pretty good.
Now, I want to know, would 12 or 13 or 14-year-old Bret Boone be friends with a 12-year-old Tyler Kepner and Rich Herrera?
Probably I would with Tyler. Definitely not with Rich. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. My friends, I would say probably most of my friends when I was a little kid, they were, the athletes, and we'd go around. We played baseball, basketball, football. But I had buddies too in the neighborhood that had nothing to do with sports, and they were all about BMX biking and causing havoc, hitting cars with snowballs. So my friends for the most part, I would say were the athletes because I spent most of my time with them throughout, the year of sports. But I didn't just stick to athletes. I had friends off the beaten path that were completely different than me, and the last thing on their mind was playing baseball, basketball. So I didn't discriminate, Rich. I was across the board. I welcomed all.
Well, at 12, I was still like a little league all-star. And then like at 13, 14, I was still pretty good in middle school. It was sort of that high school when I really started to tail off baseball-wise because the pitching got too fast and too nasty. And I could pitch a little bit, but not like big time prospect-wise.
Herrera, we've covered a lot on this podcast, but I want to know the Rich Herrera athlete. Give me your athlete as a kid. I think I've heard this before. When's the last time where you kind of looked in the mirror and said, I'm done with sports?
Probably my senior year in high school.
Well, so then you lived it out.
Yeah, I lasted a little bit longer. I played baseball up until the 10th grade. I played football all the way through high school, and I wrestled all the way through high school. So once I got I got my varsity letters of freshman, and then got a couple more in wrestling and football. But baseball, I actually tore my Achilles and couldn't play baseball anymore. And then I missed a year, and everybody just kind of skipped past me. So I stopped playing and just played football and wrestled.
So that was a loaded question you gave me. You were assuming that the audience thought, well, Rich didn't play sports and Tyler had his nose in a book. So you wanted to set me up, whereas Tyler's an all-star when we're little kids, and you're playing sports through your senior year in high school. So I thought it was a loaded question.
Well, but I want to know, would a young Tyler Kepner be running around with a hooligan like Stoltz and the Stoltz brothers and the Boone boys that are throwing snowballs with rocks at cars driving by, or or riding dirt bikes, making people mad. I don't see little Tyler Kepner being a troublemaker.
I was a fake hooligan. I was a fake hooligan. I was scared. Some of my buddies weren't scared, but I was scared. So I like to be the tough hooligan type, but I wasn't.
Tyler?
Oh, I was straight arrow, man. I didn't want to take any risks or get anybody upset. So
Tyler was Bob Boone. That's what Tyler was.
Yeah.
Tyler, this, did the police ever come to your house, Tyler, as a kid, wanting to talk to your parents?
No. No. That did not happen.
Bret, did the police ever come to your house or the Stoltz brothers' house?
Stoltz brothers' house, yes. They came to my house more as an adult. Than, no, I'm kidding. No, a couple run-ins with my buddies in the neighborhood, but no, police were never at my house. But they were at my buddy's house, and it had nothing to do with me, I swear.
There you go. All right. I like that. All right. Hey, let's get to it. The kickoff the 2025 baseball season is upon us. So I got a couple questions for the two of you to pontificate. And by the way, Tyler, this is how much I'm sacrificing for the podcast today. I am driving by Buc-ee's in 7 miles. We're just outside of Knoxville, and I'm not going to stop. This is the first Buc-ee's that I haven't stopped because I've stopped Buc-ee's since I've hit the state of Texas.
They have a sign for Buc-ee's on the Jersey Turnpike, and it's like a U-turn, and it says 800 miles or whatever, like south, or maybe not 800, whatever it is. They're nowhere near New Jersey, but for some reason they're on the Jersey Turnpike telling you to make a U-turn and go hundreds of miles to the nearest Buc-ee's.
Oh,
so.
It's amazing, this Buc-ee's thing.
I've never been.
I've never heard of it, and now I'm talking to people. I'm talking to a buddy of mine, Jeff, who runs a lot of the social media for us. And he knew all about Buc-ee's. He's from Seattle, and I'm talking to him on the phone, and he's listening to one of the podcasts, and Rich had mentioned Buc-ee's, and he was well versed. He's like, yeah, it's like the Costco for convenience stores and this and that. And I'm going, I've never heard of Buc-ee's. Now you've heard of Buc-ee's as well, so Buc-ee's must be a thing.
Oh, it's something special. So if it was Bret, I would have hung up to go to Buc-ee's one more time. But since Tyler Kepner is here and he's a New York Times bestselling author, I will go to Buc-ee's this one time, Tyler, because it's your birthday in years on, and we'll have a great podcast. So let's get into it. Let's start off our questions for the 2025 season. The biggest offseason move was blank. I'll start with you, Tyler. Biggest offseason move this year was what?
Well, I mean, the biggest was Juan Soto, right? $765 million going from one side of New York to the other. I think that was something that we've been waiting for to see. I mean, it's the record, and a 15-year contract, just astronomical. So I think that, I mean, just knee jerk as I think about it, that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Bret, the biggest offseason move is blank.
Oh, the Dodgers adding to an already ridiculous world championship roster. They just added Tanner Scott, Kirby Yates, and they brought in Sasaki and Blake Snell. Unbelievable. Dodgers in general.
Let me go off script for just a second. Tyler, are what the Dodgers and Andrew Friedman doing right now good or bad for baseball? Bringing all these players in, but the money's deferred, so they're spending money on a credit card that I'm not sure that if the Guggenheim Group is going to be there or any of the front office people are going to be there when these credit cards come due in 10, 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they've got to put a certain amount away now in a fund or something, so they can't just farm it all out to the future. It's if it's within the rules, then which it is, then I think it's good. I mean, every fan base would love to have the Dodgers mentality, right? Like just be the best you can be, and and take your chances. I mean, it's the Dodgers now are going to be in a really strong position with so much high level depth that they may not need to go out and make a trade that would hurt their farm system going forward. I mean, they've got it going on every level right now. So I can't really come down on them for just trying to win. That's to point out a disparity with other organizations, and not everybody can spend at that level. But I think a lot of owners could spend more than they're spending, and trying to make the Dodgers the issue instead of themselves.
Bret, for the players' side, and you were part of the union, they're spending with reckless abandon. What do you say if you're in the clubhouse of San Diego, where you've done as much as you can? You've spent all the money that you can, and then probably some more, and you're not going to catch them this year.
Well, I think you look at it from a player's standpoint, and it's kind of a catch-22. It's you see the Juan Soto deal, and you think, wow. And I think a lot of us were floored for what went on this offseason, how high the number went. We see the Ohtani, we can, in our minds, we can justify it because he's a two-way player, but nobody thought we'd see the money that Juan Soto got to. That being said, as a player, you think, wow, price of poker just went up. Now everybody's salary goes up. On the other side of that ledger, though, I think the other owners start grimacing and saying, wait a minute, we're spending. They didn't expect this coming either. Cohen has said since the beginning, when he purchased the Mets, he said, I don't care about money. I care about winning. I care about bringing a World Series champion to New York, not the Yankees, the Mets. And he kind of told you what he was going to do, and he's doing it now. I think this is going to cause some labor strife, though, and I think coming up in 26, there's going to be a big fight. Not only, I'll come on top of what Tyler said. I agree. I think the Dodgers have found a loophole and found a way, and we're very, found a way to do this and to put these contracts off. That being said, I think now that's going to be visited on the ownership side of, wait a minute, are we going to allow the Dodgers to do that? And we might close up that loophole. But all the rules being what they are, Dodgers have done nothing wrong. And in the meantime, they might win a few rings because of it. So as a player, I don't know. I'm in between. I'm thinking this is great. Price of poker went up. But by these things being in place now, I might be in for a fight. And baseball, since I was in those union meetings in 1994. There's been labor peace, and that's great for baseball. Probably a big reason the salaries have gotten to where they are now. But for the first time in a long time, there's a fight brewing, I think, and it's coming up after the 26th season.
Right. Well, why? I mean, the union has always, like the 94 strike was all about opposition to the salary cap, the owners wanting to break the union, put in their new system and everything. Didn't happen. The union has always been philosophically opposed to a salary cap. Always. So why? I mean, tell me about that stance, and also how they reconcile it with the fact that there is so much. Like, if someone's a free agent, he's not going to go to Pittsburgh. He's not going to go to Tampa Bay. He's not, there are certain teams that just don't play at a higher level. And the union's okay with that, I guess, as long as there's no salary cap, right?
Well, I think what's going to be discussed in this next one, and I'm not on the ground floor. I'm far removed from my days of being in the union to know what they're thinking. But I would be thinking right now, they're thinking whatever this negotiation brings and the next basic agreement, I think what they're going to talk about is not only the top and whatever happens up there. I think you're only as strong as your weakest link when it comes to players. Nowadays, social media, the amount of money out there being risked, I guess it's all relevant, though, because the amount of money you have in the bank already, you can take a $20 million hit. Where back in the day, in my generation, the big guys, when we were having the strife, were making $5 million a year. And we all thought, wow, $5 million a year, you're going to walk away from that. Guys decided to do that, and we went on strike. Or we were locked out, or we went on strike. I think we were locked out of the World Series.
Locked out in 90, strike in
95, 94, 95. But I think they're going to have to raise, like you say, the Pirates of the world. They're going to have to demand, you have to spend at least X. If you're going to have up here, we're going to do something on the top. you've got to bring it up on the bottom as well to bring
Definitely.
that parity in, so players can go different places. It's going to be interesting. It's a different generation. It's a different player coming through the system, a different culture, and it's a completely different culture too. I think at the Union. You know, when I was there, it was Donald Fear coming off, and his mentor was Marvin Miller. It was that office was filled with some of the most brilliant minds I've ever been around. I tell Rich all the time. I said I used to sit there and listen to Donald Fear and Gene Orza speak, and I'd come out of the meeting and I felt like I was living on a different planet. I've never had these conversations. I've never had somebody talk to me with the verbiage that they used to use. But it's a different culture now at the Union. Uh, it's going to be interesting what goes on. But I think with these things, and especially the Soto deal, because I don't think anybody saw that coming. They knew it was going to be a big contract, was going to break Trout's record of 400 million, but that it went and surpassed Ohtani, I think that caught a lot of people off guard, and especially the owners off guard, that if we've got Cohen and he's just going to spend what he wants, something's got to be done at the top level. And this always comes up when something like that happens. I think initially the players were, this is the greatest thing in the world. All our salaries are going to go up. And then it's, wait a minute, though, this is going to cause maybe a rift and have our first fight, real fight, that they've had in a long time. Hopefully we can avoid that, but I think this is just the beginning right now, because you're starting to hear the salary cap talk, and it's just whispers right now, but you're starting to hear it. But I think definitely something has to come, whatever this next agreement is, with the bottom the bottom teams, the teams that don't spend a lot. You to play in this poker game, you got to spend at least X, and I think that's going to be addressed.
Okay, so Tyler, let me throw this out to you. The Oakland A's used to have the highest payroll in Major League Baseball at one point, even higher than the Dodgers. But the difference between the Oakland A's highest payroll in baseball and everybody else was less than $10 million. Now we look at the disparity between, let's say, the New York, not the New York Mets and the Oakland A's. It's hundreds of millions of dollars in between the two.
Right. I mean, back then when the A's had the highest payroll, it was like the late 80s, I want to say 89 or so. And baseball had just been through collusion, which was illegal. So, you know, it was artificially keeping the salaries down and the teams a little closer. And then once they got through arbitration and then the local TV rights started to separate themselves, then we've seen an ever increasing kind of gap to where it is now. And now that the local TV paradigm is all, you know, shifting, I wonder how that's going to impact things. But you're right. I mean, it's a huge, outrageous disparity between the Dodgers and the Marlins, for example. So, you know, I guess the players are always philosophically opposed to a floor, because that would mean a cap. But some of these floors are so low that it's ridiculous. It's even more ridiculous than some of the high end, because, you know, it's kind of embarrassing, honestly, for a couple of those teams.
When you talk to owners, Tyler, or you talk to general managers, you talk to insiders in the game, what do they say about the teams that are spending chicken feed compared to what everybody else is spending?
Yeah, I think there's you know, an understanding that that old philosophy, right? If you're not going to win, if you're only good enough to win 70, 75 games, you know, then what's the difference in winning 55 or something? You know, like, I mean, that's curbed a little bit, because they don't have they have a lottery now for the draft. You're not guaranteed to get the number one pick. Heck, the White Sox lost 121 games and they're picking 10th. So you can't quite tank to the extremes, but some of these teams just are really taking advantage of it and making the others look, you know, look bad, or look like, well, why are we spending, you know, within our means, you know, or maybe a little bit more than our means, and these guys are pocketing a lot of money. So it's a complicated issue. It's going to be a thorny negotiation. I just wish that, you know, Manfred wasn't already talking about a lockout. I feel like you should be able to do some of this with reasonable people, should be able to talk about these issues without the pressure of a clock. But I guess that's how negotiations seem to work.
But I think that's the lawyer in Rob Manfred too, right? In 1994, Rob Manfred was one of the lawyers that represented the owner side, and now he is the commissioner of baseball. So I think that's the lawyer in Manfred coming out. I remember in '94 they said, "What was Manfred? He was a union buster."
Mhm.
And Manfred now
Right.
is the general or is the commissioner of Major League Baseball. He's in a different capacity, but that doesn't mean his past isn't still part of his part of his makeup. So I think that's the old lawyer, the old fighter coming out in him when he's talking about that this early in the process. Anyway, that's
Well,
my legal pitch for the day.
okay, so let me go one more question with this, and this is to you, Tyler. I think it's very interesting because I was in Oakland the year after they traded McGuire, and I sat down with Sandy Alderson and he'd explained to me, like, listen, I could spend $8 million on a veteran shortstop, or I could take that $8 million and spend it in the minor leagues. Like, hell, you're not spending any money. And I asked Andrew Friedman, hey, if you could ever spend money one day, would you? Look at the way he's spending money today. So, I mean, wouldn't all of these teams love to be able to be the Dodgers and spend money like that? Whether they can or not is a different thing.
Yeah, I think all the general managers would love to have every kind of tool at their disposal. And some of the smaller GMs are, really highly thought of. But one of the things they don't have to do is make those big decisions, those big money decisions, because they can, or their owners don't let them. So when you get to a big market, you have different skills that you've got to use, including valuing the risk. A lot of these smaller market teams, they are great at how they build competitive rosters, but they don't have to take a lot of financial risk. So it is a different kind of animal when you're in that high spending bracket too. I mean, you can cover up some of your mistakes, but you also have the potential to make some really expensive mistakes.
Why do I smell a pretty good article out there, Tyler? Which is tougher, being the general manager of the Tampa Bay Rays or the LA Dodgers? Which keeps you up at night more?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. There's a lot of Rays people scattered throughout baseball, so you could probably find a lot of answers. But I'm more interested now in just seeing what's going to happen on the field. I mean, it's exciting. It's interesting and sort of looming out there. But we still do have 2 seasons until the agreement expires. So gotta keep track of that, but also don't want to dwell on it too much.
All right, let's get right to it. The American League, the National League. I'll let you guys go. Bret, give me your thoughts on the American League. We'll start East, then work through the Central, and then the West.
American League East. Wow. Tough division. I saw, if you'd asked me a month and a half ago, I really like with Soto moving on. Obviously, that's a big blow, but I really like the Yankees. But, man, they've got hit with it. Just a ton of injuries from Heel to the Rookie of the Year a year ago to Cole being out now with Tommy John surgery. The big one for me, and I've always been a proponent of this, is as big as Judge, who won the MVP a year ago, and Soto, that 1-2 punch were unbelievable. Stanton in the middle of that lineup really solidifies it. Stanton hasn't taken a swing. We don't know when he's coming back. And when you start hearing stuff like this and Stanton's passed, I don't expect to see much of Stanton this year. So I was really bullish on the Yankees 2 months ago. That's changed. For me, Boston. Orioles haven't gotten any better for me. They're the same teams. They don't have Corbin Burns. Burns moved on to Arizona. So I think the Orioles are still going to be a quality team. I think Toronto's gotten a little better. Tampa Bay is going to do what Tampa Bay does. They're going to finish above 500, be a thorn in the side of a lot of teams. But when it comes down to it and the moves they've made, I like what Boston's done. I think they're most improved. You bring Crochet over from the White Sox. You got a Walker Buehler, who, if he's the Walker Buehler of 3 years ago when he was a Dodger, he's a top of the rotation type guy. I think he showed that down the stretch in that World Series run a year ago. Crochet's a stud. He's equal, if not equal to. He's the type of pitcher of a Tariq Skubal who won the AL Cy Young a year ago for the Tigers. I think those two at the top of the rotation is going to be really interesting. How good they can be. And don't forget Giolito, who we've been talking about for years. When's he going to fall into that Cy Young form? He's going to be in the 3 hole there. You brought over an Alex Bregman, who, if he would have gone to just any other team, I wouldn't be that excited. But Alex Bregman, with his skill set, with his offensive skill set, he sets up perfect for Fenway Park. And I think this could be a big year for him. Couple him with Devers, who's a stud. He's their best player. It's going to be interesting how that works out too. He's starting to say the right things now about being DH versus playing third base. But it's early. Let's see how that plays out. Duran, the kid in center field. I think this Boston team, for me, as it sits right now, I've got them to win the AL East.
Tyler.
Yeah, I don't want to be repetitive here, but the Red Sox really do stand out to me. I mean, for a lot of the same reasons that Bret said. I mean, they've been very patiently, very carefully building to this moment where they have a lot of great young players who are ready to hit the scene and not. You're not expecting a lot of growing pains from them either. I mean, they've been hyped a lot and they look like the real deal. So if you can get some impact guys from your farm system, like it seems like they're doing, they do what you want to do, right? You want to see a team add an ace. You want to see a team add an experienced bat like Bregman who rakes in that ballpark. I mean, they did all the things. They added to their bullpen. They're going to get more swing and miss this year. It was a very methodical approach, but it feels like this is their time to rise in that division. Toronto's never quite figured it out. The Orioles, as Bret says, they're basically the same. Let's say Jackson Holliday can make a big impact, so that's huge. But then you lose Corbin Burns and you replace him with 3 sort of mid to late 30s guys, who give you innings, but it's not the same as Corbin Burns. So, then the Yankees being down Cole, Heel, Soto, and Stanton. I know they've replaced some of them, but that's still 4 huge names to replace. So I think Boston takes the top spot this year.
All right, let's go to the Central.
Central for me, let's see. We got Cleveland, who just finds a way. They kind of have that Tampa Bay in them. We go into the season. I always look at their division in recent last 2, 3, 4 years. The AL Central is always the weakest division in the AL. And Cleveland's just resilient. I mean, I look at them. They won 92 games a year ago. Nobody would have called that at the top, especially when Bieber went down right out of the break. There's been a couple young pitchers come to the forefront. I always like Cleveland in that division. Detroit with Skubal at the top of that rotation, what they did last year. Flaherty goes back to Detroit. The way they made that late run, they were out of it they were sellers at the deadline, and all of a sudden they squeaked into the postseason and made some noise. They should be a little bit better. Minnesota's been hanging around for a long time. They're good. Duran at the end of that bullpen, I like it. It's a good team in theory. Is Lewis ever going to come to fruition? This Lewis kid is unbelievable, but he can't stay on the field. He's hurt again coming out of spring training. The White Sox are going to be the White Sox. For me, I'm going with the Reagans, Lugo, Waka. I love Lorenzen filling in. He's going to be in the 4-hole for him out of the rotation. And the leadership of a Witt Jr. and a Perez. I'm taking the Kansas City Royals in the Central.
Tyler.
Yeah, I would love to pick Minnesota, but I just feel like every year it depends on the health of Correa and Buxton and Lewis, and how many games can they give you? When they do, they'll be elite, but they're always sort of a man down or 2 men down of that trio. And I can't, as much as I like their pitching, I can't really heartily endorse Minnesota because you just don't know if their 3 best players are going to be out there. So I agree. I'm going to go with Kansas City. I love their rotation, and their bullpen has gotten better. They'll have Ursig, they'll have Estevez. But I love the Jonathan India move. I think what they really needed was a guy at the top to get on base. They had the lowest on base percentage from the leadoff spot in the major leagues last year, and yet they still had a really good season. And now they add a guy who's a pretty good on base guy up top, and then you have Bobby Witt Jr. and Sal Perez and Vinny Pasquantino to line up right behind him. So I love the top of their order. Not so big on the rest of it, but I think they can figure out a way to get by. And those pitchers are still really good. I mean, Reagans is a guy you could look at as a potential Cy Young candidate. Lugo was second in the Cy Young last year, and we know about Waka, Lorenzen. So I think they've got some depth there. I'm going to go with Kansas City, while recognizing that Cleveland and Detroit are could be tough too. And with Detroit, if they get a lot of Jackson Jobe this year, he could be a difference maker. But I don't know. I think it's Kansas City again.
All right, Tyler, let me go to you for the West.
For the West is interesting. The Astros, kind of like the Yankees, they lose Presley and they lose Tucker and they lose Bregman. And again, there are replacements, but those are still three big names you got to account for. So I don't know if I can. If I can pick Houston again this year, as good as Cam Smith has looked in spring training, and I can't wait to see how he does. Texas, again, it's a little bit like the Twins. Like, okay, Texas looks amazing if DeGrom is like who they paid for and who he was as a Cy Young winner, but that was like 5-6 years ago now, and he's always been hurt. So can you really count on DeGrom to give you 30 starts or 25 starts? I don't know. I mean, that's a difference maker there in that division. So the A's are on the rise. Anaheim is interesting, with some of their decisions, and they're certainly not a team that's just lying down and doing nothing. But I don't think they'll do enough. Again, with Mike Trout, their best players hurt so much, you don't know. I'll say Seattle. I mean, I liked Seattle a lot last year. They didn't hit, but they're going to pitch. And I think a consistent offensive approach from Edgar Martinez to Kevin Seitzer, whose birthday is also today. And some of those hitters not having like shock over the effect of that ballpark anymore. They're all kind of coming back. They know what they're getting into in Seattle, and who better to lead those hitters than two professional hitters like Edgar and Seitzer. So I'm expecting a bounce back from Julio Rodriguez and Mitch Garver and some of these guys. So Jorge Polanco, JP Crawford. They can't be as bad as they were last year. They just can't offensively. So I like Seattle. Remember, Seattle was up 10 games in division in May, and they did win, or in June. They did win 86 games, I think. So they're not as bad maybe as people think. I think they're just a little bit of an offensive uptick away from winning that division. So I'll go with Seattle.
Brett?
All right. I look at that division. I see Oakland, as bad as they were a year ago. They've gotten a little bit better, but not to be reckoned with. I think in Anaheim, same thing. They put Kikuchi at the top of that rotation. They're a little bit better, but I don't think anybody that can challenge that division. And it comes to the three. It comes to Houston, that's had kind of a stranglehold on that division for the last 7-8 years. The Texas Rangers and the Seattle Mariners. Seattle Mariners, in my opinion, with the Dodgers if the Dodgers weren't out there, I think the Seattle Mariners have the best starting rotation in all of baseball. Worries me a little bit that Kirby's going to miss time out of the gate. He'd probably be in that number 2 hole. He's really good, but with Gilbert, Miller, Castillo, Wu, the kid Hancock will be in the 5 hole coming out of spring training. He's very capable in that 5th spot. Bullpen, Matt Brash coming back. He was a huge missing piece to that bullpen a year ago to complement Munoz at the end of the game. He's going to be back. He threw his first spring training the other day, so he should be back probably in late April. But they have done absolutely nothing on the offensive side of the ball. And with that kind of pitching staff, kind of a generation, you're not going to see this level this quality of a pitching staff that you see in Seattle, maybe for 10, 20, 30 years, and they're just not spending the money on the offensive side. Julio definitely, probably, not definitely, probably. I don't think that's a very good start to a sentence. But Julio's got to be better than he was a year ago. Absolutely. So I see that. I don't see anyone else on that offensive side of the ball that's gotten any better. That brings me to Texas. DeGrom. Wow. The best pitcher in baseball when healthy and when right, without a doubt. I think that would be widespread across the game of baseball, but that hasn't happened in the last 4 or 5 years. So can you really count on that? I love them bringing Eovaldi back. They've shored up that bullpen. They were 13th in the league last year in the bullpen. They've shored up that bullpen at the end with a Chris Martin and a Garcia. I think that's going to help their bullpen. But the key, what they won the 2023 World Series with, was an unbelievable offense, an offense that just overpowered the opposition. All the pieces are in place and healthy for that offense to be what it was 2 years ago, but there's just a lot of ifs. If I've got to put it all in DeGrom and Eovaldi at the top, you just lost Gray. He's going to be out. I think he's on the 60-day. That's a big blow to them in the middle of that rotation. They pitch okay. They offense great. Houston lost Verlander, Tucker, Bregman, Presley. They've replaced him. Javier's not going to be back till the second half of the season, but when push comes to shove, because there's too many question marks with the Texas Rangers, and Seattle hasn't done anything for the offense, I think Houston's going to find a way again. They always do.
All right, let's go over to the National League. Tyler, why don't you start us out west?
Out west, well, shockingly, I think the Dodgers are the best team. Now that might send waves through the podcast world, but how do you go against the Dodgers? I mean, they're built for the regular season, built for the postseason. I mean, that's the thing, though. Like, that's where another team can trip them up is maybe in October just because of the randomness of it. But they're built to be pretty much stone cold lock to certainly get to the postseason and I think win that division. And it's a good division, though. So it's not like it's a potential runaway. It's not going to be easy night in, night out, but I think they're clearly the best team in a division that I think that, the Diamondbacks are very good. The Padres are good, and San Francisco's made some moves that they should be in the mix too. So 4 good teams in that division, but the Dodgers stand alone.
Brett?
Yeah, I think that's an easy answer. I mean, this Dodger team, and we're playing in a generation now where health is so important, much more so than it has in past years or in the history of baseball. And this Dodger team, top to bottom, it might be the best 26-man roster on paper I've ever seen in my lifetime. And it has a lot of depth to it as well. So in the era of injuries are a major factor in going into the formula of what makes a winning team in 2025. I think the Dodgers are not only the best team and the most talented team, but they're the deepest team as well to fight those injuries. Padres are great. I think they're a playoff team. They're going to be missing Musgrove, and Darvish is going to start the year on the IL, but Cease and King at the top of that rotation, really good. They've got a really talented offense, waiting for Bogarts to be that star player they thought they were getting 3 years ago. But with Tatis, Machado, and the young Jackson Merrill, Padres are a playoff team. I think Arizona, with the addition of Burns coming over there, and they added a few parts on the offensive side, I think they're a playoff caliber team as well. But when push comes to shove, I just don't see anybody being competition for this Dodgers team.
Tyler, any update, any word on what's going on with Mookie Betts?
Yeah, he played a little bit in the field in the Freeway Series, so he's at least back on the field. He lost 20 pounds or so with his illness, that sent him home early from Tokyo, and he couldn't keep food down and didn't, was sort of scared to eat just because of how he was feeling. But, so I would expect that there's some weakness there. I'm not sure if he will play yet at the very start of the season. I haven't seen that one way or the other, but it's good to see that he's back out there in the field a little bit. But I imagine it's going to take some time to build back your strength. I mean, Brett, I can't imagine what it's like to be a hitter and to lose 20 pounds. That Mookie doesn't seem like he had 20 pounds to lose. I mean, he's a pretty lean, wiry guy. So I imagine that it's going to be tough to get right back in there against Tarek Skubal or whoever they're facing in that Tiger series and try to hit when you're down 20 pounds.
I couldn't imagine it. I mean, he, like you said, he's already slight in build for what he puts up numbers wise and the power that he has. It's unbelievable. But to be 157 pounds and to lose 20, I mean, 20 of your, I couldn't imagine being that, losing 20 pounds. That's huge. But Mookie Betts, he's kind of a freak. He can kind of do it all. And they're talking about him starting an opening day. So, it's kind of a little bit troubling for nobody really knowing what's wrong. But we wish him the best, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's going to be a real challenge, getting that weight back on him and feeling like Mookie Betts needs to feel.
Brett, let's quickly go through the Central.
Central is real competitive. Nothing exciting for me. Push comes to shove. I am going to go with the additions of Tucker and Presley. I'm going to take the Chicago Cubs in the Central.
Tyler?
Early when we asked what the biggest move of the offseason was, I said Juan Soto, and Brett said the Dodgers moves, and both of those were huge. But I think Terry Francona coming back to the Cincinnati Reds is also a huge move. He's a difference maker. We've seen that when he got to Boston. Well, they were already good in Boston, but he got to Cleveland and they started winning. Cincinnati looks like they have a chance to really all come together this year. They've got their ace in Hunter Green. They've got some other really good young pitchers who can take a step forward. Ellie De La Cruz, we know how good he is, and he can only get better, I think, at his age. They got Matt McClain coming back. So, my head says that the Cubs have done enough to improve, from 83 wins, and then they added Tucker and some other guys. But I'm going to have fun with this one and just say Cincinnati because, I think that all signs are pointing up there from the dugout leadership through the rotation and the offense. So I think Cincinnati might surprise some people.
Inspired by Bret Boone being a fantasy Reds. Let's go to the East.
We'll go to the East. I think it's a 3-team race and maybe the most competitive division with the Phillies, the Mets, and the Braves. All really good teams. Mets, tons of additions. I don't think they've done enough in the starting rotation. The Atlanta Braves lose a Max Fried, but Strider's going to be back at the end of April. Sale's going to be at the top, coming off of Cy Young. Acuna is going to be back. I think Olsen, with the exception of Ozuna, everybody on that Braves team, and it's an electric offensive team, had a down year last year. I don't think you're going to see that. And when you go Riley, Olsen, Albies, Acuna coming back late April, that's a tough offense. Braves are going to be really good. But I'm going to go with the Phillies. That Phillies team, they've been trying to win for a while now. They've been in good position the last 2 years, and somehow they get eliminated in the postseason. Wheeler, Nola, Suarez, Sanchez. They added Luzardo to that rotation. I think they're the most comparable thing I see to that Astros lineup of the last 5 or 6 years. Just that offense seems to like one another. They seem to be buddies more than just teammates. Buddies, they like coming to the ballpark. Not to mention how talented they are offensively. I don't know. I think it's time. I think the Phillies win that division.
Tyler.
Yeah, I do too. It's I think surface level, you look at the Phillies and they've gone from losing the World Series to losing in the LCS to losing in the division series, but they've actually gotten better in those seasons. They've been winning more as each season goes on in the regular season, and they are built with strong starting pitching. They added to that with Jesus Luzardo. They've got Andrew Painter coming later in the season. He is the real deal. I think you could get some high impact innings from him, depending on how they distribute it. Don't love their bullpen necessarily, but you never know. Bullpens can always surprise you, and their offense is what we've come to see. And I think there's some worry that there's maybe like they've stagnated a little bit, or they don't have enough guys in their 20s anymore. But this isn't like a super old lineup. I mean, it's like early 30s guys, or guys who are still they've been around a little bit, but I wouldn't expect them all to fall apart. So it's a little bit of an older team, but I still think they are squarely in this championship window, and I can't come up with a really good reason to knock them off of that division title other than just Atlanta if they get all their guys back. But again, as Bret said, let's not forget they lost Max Fried, pretty good pitcher, and they'll get back Strider, but coming off Tommy John, you don't know. And also Chris Sale, Cy Young winner last year, all the credit, but he doesn't have a recent history of extreme durability either, like some of the Phillies guys do. So, and I don't agree. I agree the Mets didn't do enough of their rotation.
Okay, time for one of my favorite parts of our preview that we do annually. Tyler, we'll start with you. Give me one fearless forecast. Break out your crystal ball for the season.
A fearless forecast. Well, in the past, I picked an exact date that someone would throw a perfect game, and it was Zach Allen, and he actually took a no-hitter that day in like the 5th inning. So I give myself partial credit. I don't see a specific date in my crystal ball for a perfect game this year, but I do see the A's having a real good time out in Sacramento. I think just the fact that they're finally on the moves. They've shaken the whole will they or won't they leave Oakland question. I think that's just going to be a burden that's really removed. I think it'll be new. I think the visiting teams might complain about playing in a minor league park, but I think the A's will embrace it. All the stuff there is updated anyway. All the stuff in the Coliseum was old. So there's going to be a freshness to it. They've got a couple new starting pitchers in Springs and Severino. They've got a couple of their young core now coming off recent contract extensions. They're all in on being there. They love Marcotte. So I think it's going to be a surprisingly healthy and fun atmosphere for baseball. And as mediocre as the American League is, I wouldn't be shocked if the A's find their way to the postseason. So I don't know exactly how, but I'll make that my fearless forecast, that things are looking up for the A's and they get into the playoffs.
All right, Bret, what's your fearless forecast?
Fearless forecast is there will be a 30-game plus hitting streak this year, and it will be a left-handed hitter. Probably this would be tough. I'm thinking a Seager or a Freddie Freeman. With Seager, I just think health. Can he play 30 games in a row? But yes, that's my fearless forecast. There will be a 30-plus game hitting streak in 2025.
All right, I like it. All right, 2 more questions, then we'll wrap everything up. MVP. We'll start with Tyler. Who's going to be the MVP, American and National League?
Well, a lot of times these awards go to guys perceived as the big difference makers on unlikely playoff teams or whatever. So if I'm picking the Reds, I'm going to say Elly De La Cruz. He's going to have a big year. He's at that age where he's going to take off a little bit. He led the majors, 67 steals last year. He can improve on that this year, be the first guy in 18 years to get 75 steals, maybe even 100. Who knows? He's got a lot of that exciting talent in all areas. Got to cut down the strikeouts. He had 218 strikeouts last year. That's got to change. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say Elly De La Cruz in the National League. And in the American League, I'm going to go a little chalky and go with Bobby Witt Jr. with Kansas City. I mean, he was so close to being an MVP last year, if not for an insane Aaron Judge season. Witt, again, is that age and that all-around skill set that is going to really jump out at the voters. So I'll say Witt and Elly.
All right, Brett? I'm as chalky as it gets, because I think if Ohtani just stays upright and comes back and does pitch, which he's forecasted to do, and I know he really wants to. I don't see how you beat Ohtani. He's just too good up and down. So that's my National League MVP will be Ohtani again. The American League, best offensive player on the planet right now is Aaron Judge, and I don't see that changing. I think Seager, if he stays healthy, he can challenge Judge. I think Witt obviously can challenge Judge, and take into consideration they do play a premier position at shortstop. But at the end of the day, for me, Judge is the best offensive player in the world, and I think he's going to win the MVP again.
Let's get to our World Series winner predictions. I'm going to go with Tyler first.
All right. Well, 110 years ago, the Phillies and the Red Sox hooked up in the World Series. The Red Sox won in 5 games after Grover Cleveland Alexander won Game 1 for the Phils. This year, I think it will be a 110-year revenge for the Phillies. The Phillies over the Red Sox in the World Series. The Red Sox haven't lost a World Series actually since '86. Whenever they get in, they win. But the Phillies, I think this is the year it all comes together for them. 1915 revisited, Phillies, Red Sox, but the Phillies on top.
Oh, the folks
to join the Eagles, the mighty Eagles.
Yes, the Eagles. Oh, I don't know if we could deal with all that.
Sixers not so much.
Well, when the Phillies won the World Series, Tyler, in 1980, I believe the Eagles, Sixers, and Flyers all were in the finals. Only one team won. So that's telling me in a World Championship season, there's only room for one sport to win. So that you got your Eagles.
We did.
I'm with you. I love
the important for me.
I'm with you. I love the Phillies this year, and I think they're great. I'm just going to be as boring as it gets, and everybody's going to predict this. But I've gone over this. I'm trying to find a way in the modern era for somebody to beat this Dodgers team, and I don't see it. I just don't see. They're just too deep. When everybody else is going to get into the dog days of summer, and guys are going down and getting hurt and going on the IL, the Dodgers just replace them with another star for the next guy that gets injured. So I just think it's going to be too much for anybody. I think they are going to be playing the Boston Red Sox on the other side. So I go Red Sox, Dodgers. They do it easily. It's boring. They do it in 5 games.
We haven't seen a 7-game series. We haven't seen a 7-game series yet in the 20s. I want a 7-game series. Whoever wins, that's what I really want. That's a bold prediction for you. 7-game World Series. It's been a while. So I don't want to sweep. I don't want a 4-gamer. And if we get to 6, we might as well get to 7. So let's go 7.
More baseball is good for everybody. All right, that's going to be our preview for the 2025 season. Our thanks to Tyler Kepner from The Athletic and New York Times bestselling author, and of course, Bret Boone. I'm Rich Fair. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll talk to you next time.